Istanbul was never supposed to run out of water. A city of 17 million people stretched across 2 continents, powered by industry, tourism, and culture. A city built on the image of abundance, surrounded by water on every side. But here's the part no one talks about. None of that water is drinkable. Every drop that keeps this city alive comes from a system behind the hills and forests, a network of reservoirs and dams that were engineered to keep Istanbul running no matter how fast it grew. And that system is starting to fail. The lakes are shrinking, the reservoirs are exposing their cracked floors, and the numbers coming from the city's own water authority are no longer warnings, they're alarms. Experts are now openly using a term that terrifies city planners everywhere: Day Zero, a term made famous during Cape Town's water crisis in 2018 and is no longer a what-if scenario for Turkey. It's a very real and looming threat. The numbers tell a frightening story. In April 2025, Istanbul's reservoirs were at a relatively healthy 82% capacity. But after a scorching summer and a severe lack of rain, that figure has collapsed. By October, levels had crashed to below 25%, a staggering drop in just a few months. Some of the city's 10 main reservoirs are in even worse shape. The Melen Dam, for example, is nearly empty, with levels recorded as low as 2.29%. To put that into perspective, Istanbul's total water storage capacity is over 868 million cubic meters, but as of late 2025, only a fraction of that is left. This is the story of how one of the world's greatest cities found itself on the edge of a water catastrophe. It's a tale of historic drought, explosive urban growth, and a frantic race against time to find a way out. So the real question is, what happens when the water that sustains a metropolis starts to vanish? And Istanbul is about to find out. Welcome to Empire Secrets. So how did things get this bad, this fast? The short answer is a brutal, relentless drought. The summer of 2025 was one of the driest in recent memory. Rainfall in the wider Marmara region dropped dramatically in some parts, but as much as 95% below normal. Istanbul itself saw rainfall plummet 71% in July compared to the previous year. This extreme weather, which experts link directly to accelerating climate change, means the reservoirs aren't refilling, while scorching temperatures cause more evaporation, further shrinking what's left. But this crisis wasn't caused by a single dry summer. It's the result of deeper issues that have been building for decades. The most obvious is Istanbul's explosive growth. The city's population has swelled to around 17 million people, putting a massive, ever-growing strain on its resources. On an average day, the city drinks over 3 million cubic meters of water. That insatiable thirst means the system's under pressure even in a normal year. In a drought year, that pressure becomes a breaking point. This rapid urbanization has created another problem. The city is literally growing over its own water supply. Unauthorized settlements and industrial zones have crept right up to the edges of the reservoir basins. This not only raises the risk of pollution, degrading the quality of the remaining water, but it also messes with the natural water cycle. Concrete and asphalt have replaced forests and wetlands, stopping rainwater from seeping into the ground to recharge natural aquifers. The city's infrastructure, the very network of dams and pipes meant to keep the water flowing, has its own weaknesses. Istanbul is almost entirely dependent on surface water collected in its 10 main reservoirs, which accounts for 97% of its supply. Only a tiny 3% comes from groundwater. This makes the city incredibly vulnerable to drought and evaporation. When the rain doesn't come, there's no real plan B. On top of all that, the system itself is inefficient. A significant amount of treated water is lost through leaks in aging pipes before it ever reaches a tap, the same problem that plagued São Paulo during its water crisis. There are also challenges in moving water where it's needed most. While some reservoirs, like Kazandia, are practically bone dry, others, like El Mali, have held on to higher, though still falling, levels. This imbalance points to the need for a smarter, more connected system that can shift water from areas of relative plenty to those in critical need. The impact of this crisis is starting to hit every part of society. For the 17 million people who call this city home, the threat is no longer an abstraction. It's a source of daily anxiety. Families wonder if they'll wake up to dry taps. They're being asked to take shorter showers, to reuse water, to completely change their relationship with a resource they've always taken for granted. For businesses, this uncertainty is a huge economic threat. Restaurants, hotels, and factories that depend on water are facing a shaky future. What does a factory do when it can't cool its machines? How does a restaurant stay hygienic without a reliable water supply? A long period of water scarcity could trigger operational shutdowns, energy shortages, and major economic losses. Even the tourism sector, so vital to Istanbul's economy, could suffer as headlines about a water crisis tarnish the city's image. The ecological damage is already here, visible in the barren landscapes that were once thriving reservoirs. These aren't just water tanks, they're ecosystems. The loss of water destroys freshwater habitats, harms biodiversity, and can even raise the risk of waterborne diseases as pollutants become more concentrated. The sight of cattle grazing on the green land that has emerged from the receding waters of the Melen Dam is a surreal symbol of this shift. What was once a home for fish is now pasture. This is the anatomy of Istanbul's crisis, a perfect storm of climate change, unchecked growth, and aging infrastructure, all coming together to threaten the water security of a major global city. The immediate problem is the lack of rain, but the deeper issue is a system stretched to its absolute limit. Istanbul's struggle isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a stark local chapter in a growing global story of cities facing water crises. To really get what's at stake, we need to look at other megacities that have stood on this same cliff edge. Their stories offer both a crucial roadmap and a chilling warning for Istanbul. First, take Cape Town, South Africa. In 2018, it became the first major city in the modern era to face the real possibility of day zero. After a 3-year drought, the city's reservoirs fell to dangerously low levels, almost exactly where Istanbul is now. The city launched a dramatic public countdown to the day the taps would be shut off, forcing residents to line up for daily water rations. The situation was dire, with the potential for civil unrest and a public health nightmare. But Cape Town pulled back from the brink. How? Through a mix of drastic measures. The city imposed incredibly strict water restrictions, cutting daily water use by more than half. It launched an aggressive and frankly terrifying public awareness campaign that made Day Zero a household term. This created a powerful sense of shared purpose. People embraced water-saving habits with amazing commitment, from using hand sanitizer to collecting shower water for flushing toilets. At the same time, the government scrambled to find new water sources, investing in desalination plants, wastewater recycling, and tapping into underground aquifers. The lessons from Cape Town are powerful. First, getting the public on board isn't just helpful, it's essential. You can't solve a crisis this big with technicians alone. You need the whole city involved. Second, clear and consistent communication from the authorities builds trust and encourages people to follow the tough rules. Finally, diversifying water sources is the key long-term strategy for building resilience. Now, let's turn to São Paulo, Brazil. Between 2014 and 2017, this megacity of over 20 million people suffered its own historic water crisis. Like Istanbul, it was triggered by drought but made worse by systemic problems. Deforestation in the Amazon disrupted rainfall patterns hundreds of miles away, a stark reminder of how environmental damage elsewhere can have devastating local effects. But the city's own infrastructure was a huge part of the problem. It was estimated that São Paulo was losing over 30% of its treated water through leaky pipes and illegal hookups. The social fallout was severe. The city had rolling water shutoffs, with some neighborhoods going without water for days. Protests broke out and the economic toll was massive. The lesson from São Paulo is a harsh one. You can't ignore your infrastructure. Investing in maintenance, plugging leaks, and ensuring fair distribution aren't optional. They're fundamental to a city's survival. It showed that a crisis isn't just about supply, but also about management and efficiency. Finally, let's look at Turkey itself. Istanbul isn't alone. Ankara and Izmir have also reported critically low reservoir levels. In some regions, like Thrace near Istanbul, dams have run completely dry, forcing authorities to divert water from farms just to supply homes. This points to a national systemic problem. Turkey is a water-stressed country, and climate change is projected to make it much worse. Scientific studies warn that by 2050, if not sooner, cities across Turkey are at high risk of facing day zero conditions. What these stories from Cape Town, São Paulo, and across Turkey tell us is that Istanbul is on a well-trodden, dangerous path. The challenges are all remarkably similar: climate volatility, population pressure, and aging infrastructure. But they also offer a glimmer of hope. They show that disaster isn't a foregone conclusion. With strong leadership, public cooperation, and smart long-term investment, a city can pull itself back from the brink. The question is, can Istanbul learn these lessons in time? The countdown is on. With the threat breathing down its neck, Istanbul is in a desperate race to secure its water future. The solutions on the table are a mix of emergency actions, massive engineering projects, and a total rethink of how the city uses water. This isn't just about fighting one drought, it's about re-engineering a megacity's relationship with its most vital resource. The first and most critical line of defense is conservation. The Istanbul Water and Sewage Administration, or ISKI, has launched urgent public appeals, calling on everyone to slash their consumption. This is the Cape Town model: make every citizen part of the solution. But beyond asking people to use less, there's a push to make the system itself more efficient. A huge amount of the city's water is lost to leaks in an ancient network of pipes. Fixing this non-revenue water that's treated but never reaches a customer, is a top priority. It's not as glamorous as building a new dam, but it's one of the cheapest ways to find more water. Still, conservation alone won't save a city of this size. The cornerstone of Istanbul's long-term strategy is a project of monumental scale: the Melen Dam system. This is one of the biggest infrastructure projects in Turkey's history, designed to be a lifeline for the thirsty metropolis. The idea is simple: divert water from the Melen River, about 180 kilometers to the east, and pipe it all the way to Istanbul. The engineering is breathtaking. The project involves a massive dam, a 189-kilometer-long pipeline, multiple pumping stations, and a high-tech water treatment plant, and a 5.5-kilometer tunnel running under the Bosphorus Strait to get water from the Asian side to the European side. The goal is for this system to deliver over 1 billion cubic meters of fresh water every year, hopefully meeting Istanbul's needs until at least 2040. The Melen system is already providing some relief. Even with the main dam still facing delays, water is being pumped from the river to supplement the city's dwindling reservoirs. Without it, the situation today would be far more catastrophic. But the project is steeped in controversy. Construction of the dam has been hit with major delays and engineering problems, including reports of cracks in the main structure that have pushed back its completion date again and again. Creating the reservoir also meant seizing land and completely relocating villages like Ortaköy, forcing residents to leave their homes, their history, and even the graves of their ancestors. On top of that, some experts are asking a tough question: can the Melen River itself, which is also affected by climate change, really be counted on to quench Istanbul's growing thirst for the next 50 years? Beyond Melen, other ideas are being explored. Rainwater harvesting, from small-scale systems on individual buildings to large municipal ones, could capture precious rain before it disappears down the drain. Expanding wastewater recycling facilities could also create a major new source of water for things like industrial use or watering parks, taking pressure off the freshwater supply. Experts are also calling for smarter urban planning. This means protecting the forests and green spaces that still surround the reservoirs, which act as natural sponges. It also means enforcing strict rules to stop any more construction in these vital water catchment areas. Some have even criticized other mega-projects, like the proposed Canal Istanbul, warning that they could do even more damage to the region's fragile water systems. Ultimately, many argue that the most sustainable path forward isn't to just keep building more dams and pipelines, but to master the art of water efficiency. Improving irrigation for agriculture, promoting water-saving tech in industry, and fostering a permanent culture of conservation among the public are all critical pieces of the puzzle. An initiative called the Istanbul Water Consensus is pushing for exactly this: a future where cooperation and smart policies are at the heart of the city's strategy. Istanbul's search for solutions is a high-stakes balancing act between immediate needs and long-term survival. It's a story of incredible engineering, tough compromises, and the slow, hard work of building a resilient city in the face of a changing climate. The cracked earth of the Kazandir Reservoir is more than just a symbol of drought. It's a glimpse of a possible future, a future where a city of 17 million, a global hub of culture and history, is defined not by its magnificent waterways, but by a crippling thirst. The stakes for Istanbul could not be any higher. Yet this story doesn't have to end in disaster. Today's crisis is also a chance for transformation. The lessons from Cape Town show that a city can rally, innovate, and overcome a challenge that seems impossible. The fight for water can forge a new sense of community and build a stronger, more resilient society. Istanbul's future will be defined by the choices it makes today. Will it fully commit to the tough but necessary path of sustainable water management? Will it invest not just in concrete and steel, but in protecting its natural ecosystems? Will its citizens embrace a permanent culture of conservation, seeing water not as an endless commodity, but as a shared, precious treasure? The Melen Project, for all its problems, shows a powerful will to survive, a refusal to let the city wither. But it also highlights the fact that there are no easy fixes. The fight for Istanbul's water is a marathon, not a sprint. It will demand technological innovation, political courage, and a collective shift in how everyone thinks about water. The situation in Turkey is a powerful wake-up call that water is a finite resource, something we can no longer take for granted anywhere. This crisis is being driven by global trends that affect all of us. Learning about these challenges is the first step towards finding solutions, not just for Istanbul, but everywhere. Because the world now finds itself at another, more critical juncture. The choice between a future of scarcity and a future of security. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing and sharing this video. Spreading awareness is important. This was Empire Secrets. Your desire, your empire.